Latvijā un arī Čehijā, dažādu valstu piemēri. So dear guests, I'm very honored with your presence for our conversation regarding the main issue, the rights and options to the more equal life, and how to institutionalize the care within Scandinavia as well as in Czech Republic as well as in Latvia. So it is my honor to introduce dear guests. Dāmas un kungi, es piebildīšu, ka mūsu nākamā saruna notiks angļu valodā. Ja jums ir nepieciešams tulkojums, tad paceliet roku, mums ir tulkošanas ierīces. Our conversation will be in English. If you're not convenient with that, then just raise up your hand and ask for the translation device. If it's not, then you're kindly welcome. So, who is on the panel? Dr. Jan Pfeiffer, who is a doctor and psychiatrist, and you are just actively promoting the process of deinstitutionalizing the medical care and the mental care of the people, and just moving the people out from institutions, use different opportunities how to take care of that. Anders Frische, you are presenting the Headspace.dk. You're welcome on board, as well as your colleague, Karla Brandt Lange, who is lecturing and supporting as well as the Headspace in Denmark, and Eva Leymane-Veldmeyer, who is the director of the NGO Zelda, also welcome on board. So while we are trying to find the right ways how to take care of the people with different mental diseases, actually it's luckily that you are here in Latvia in our conversation festival, and we are very happy that you're going to share the experience how you did it, for example, in Denmark, and you are kindly welcome to start, because I may suppose that you have the most longest experience and knowledge on that, so you're welcome. Yeah, they have a mic already. It works. It works. It works. Hello, hello. Where is our technical guy? Wait a minute. It's gonna work. It's gonna work, yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, sounds right. Yeah, in Denmark, the deinstitutionalization was a process that happened 40, 30, 20 years ago, maybe, and it's still ongoing. It's still hard to talk about mental illness. It's still hard to talk about mental diseases, but we have managed, we are a long way down the road by managing to integrate people with mental illness who need treatment into the society. It's easier to be open about mental illness now than 50 years ago.
But you had institutions before, isn't it?
Yeah, we had
specialized hospitals and everything else. Do you remember what was the trigger just to moving out the people with this different diseases just out from the institutions and just use a different approach?
Yeah, I guess the trigger was we had huge hospitals, we had whole communities where there was people with mental illness, and I guess the real trigger was when the public found out what happened inside those institutions. And that those people, they wasn't getting better. They were just being placed there and almost forgot by society. And that wasn't the wish of the Danish government, of the Danish people. It was to help people, to bring the most quality to the people's lives in those institutions. And to do that, we had to break up those walls, break up those institutions, and moving people into society again.
Was it an easy way? Because actually here in Latvia we struggle with, I don't know, the society not always think that's a good way how to do this. And actually, yes, probably we might think twice before we're taking that step. Have you considered and have you gone through the same in Denmark? Because probably not all of the Danes were happy at those times of 40 years ago.
Probably not, but I guess that time has shown that it's okay. It's okay that everyone have a place in the society, and I guess that it makes it easier to understand what's going on which makes it easier to understand mental illness. If people with mental illness is a part of the society. And I guess one of our jobs at Headspace is going out telling about mental health and mental illness at public schools, at education for young people, where we try to inform how does mental illness affect people, how can we help people with mental illness, and most importantly try to normalize and tell how often are people involved in mental illness, how many people are affected by mental illness, and how can we talk about it in a way to make people smarter.
But can you say that the Headspace is something very special? And actually, could you quite briefly and simply describe what it is and how it works?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay.
And I'm sure Carla will support me.
Give a mic to Carla.
As a volunteer in Headspace, and I'm a counselor, a youth counselor in Headspace, and I think it's very special because we use me as a volunteer and I'm a youngster myself, to talk with other youngsters, and I mean that we abolish many taboos about mental illnesses when we talk about them, and we normalize the youngsters and tell them that it's okay and their feelings are very normal to many others, just like myself. So that is something special, or I don't know if you can say it's a way to show that that it's something we need to talk about, and you can do it here, and we have time because we are. Maybe you can say something more about the overall structure in Headspace.
Yes, still welcome.
Yeah, we are a few specialists in our Headspace who are paid to be there, and then most of Headspace is actually volunteers. And the one thing I believe is exceptional in Headspace is we have the time and we have no prefixed agenda. We have to talk about what is on the mind of the young people entering the door. I don't have to talk about medication or illness or work or anything else. I have to talk to the young people about what's on the mind of the young people. To talk about how it is to be 20 years old and moving to own apartment, how it is to be in the first serious relationship, and all the other stuff. And you go through all those dilemmas if you're mental ill or if you're...
So, but actually in Denmark everyone knows what the Headspace is, how to reach you, and actually what is the thing about, to talk about, isn't it? How do you market that? I would like to just to know. Or just to, you're going by the street and just grabbing people by hand and saying, oh well, you might consider some mental illnesses and probably you're going to call us.
Yeah, we are trying to get to every public school in Denmark. We're trying to make online campaigns. We are trying to go places where young people are. It's a place for young people from 12 to 25, and the aim is to reach every young people in Denmark so they know where they can get the help. We cannot fix everything. We're not psychiatrists. We're not like my neighbor here. He can help in another way, but maybe we can be the help that gets them to Jan.
Okay.
We can go to the doctor with the young people.
Okay. I'll open the floor to Anders Frische. To Jan Pfeiffer. You're from Czech Republic, and actually you are actively promoting all the how to take care of the mental diseases, and probably you have some specific way and some specific knowledge that you have learned during the previous years that you've done your own way. So, Mr. Pfeiffer, you're welcome. How it's done in Czech Republic?
I think it's really very much about point of view, also how we use the language. If you say mental illness, and it's understandable, but it's labeling, yeah? But we try to use even like people with psychosocial issue, because who is ill and who is not, you know, where we put, are you normal? I don't know.
I'm not.
Yes,
I'm not.
Sure. I am definitely not normal. You know, that's the first, that the society in, I don't know, 19th century had a need to label some people who have a little bit maybe more creative thinking, to label them like strange, dangerous, and start to lead them out of the society. And they did it with a lot of other conditions, like people with intellectual disabilities, which we better say people's learning issue. And I think what happened then, especially after the Second War, after the horrible, let's say, knowledge and stories of what Nazi did, generally, but especially those with mental health problems and intellectual disabilities, because the professionals, like psychiatrists, were actively involved in killing the people within the hospitals, within the institutions. And I think that was a shock which opened the doors to discuss why we treat somebody differently than the other people are treated. But unfortunately, your country, my country, was under the shadow of this totalitarian thinking, and the doors were opened only 30 years ago. I think the difference is also that Western countries like Denmark, Italy, whatever, they, let's say, like come up from the bottom, from themselves. And I'm afraid that sometimes this human rights issue are still coming like from outside to other countries. That I think the first thing is to change the thinking of especially professionals, and that's what we did. That's what we start to do, and also like we try on a beginning, and I'm talking maybe 30 years ago, to create alternative services, but not to use mental health professionals, because it was just difficult. Such they were those with highest prejudice towards the people with mental health problem, because they even think that this is their profession, to diagnose, to treat, to look what the people can't do and not what the people can do. You know, and if you change it, then it's a miracle. People can do a lot of things. People, they maybe even they hear what I can't hear. I don't know what it is, but even with that, they can do a lot of great things. A lot of great people suffer some kind of special issue. Yeah, and this is the basic. That if you change the mindset, then you go, and then you find a way how you can assist people, because everybody has different needs. It is about individuality, it is about individual support, and then of course you can find that people can live individually with individual support. They don't need to be like prison somewhere. And that's what we do.
Was it quite easy way to introduce the concept in Czech Republic?
No, of course it's not easy,
yes.
Because I think it's really like this institution is.
What have you gone through actually?
Yeah. I think somebody say that to introduce the market economy, it takes 6 months. To introduce democracy, it takes 6 years, and to introduce a civic society, it takes 60 years. And this is part of the civic society. Yeah, that I think that it will take another generation. It's not easy, but it can be done, because finally, if you look on, for example, economical issue, to treat people where they live flexibly, that you create some kind of mobile teams, and mobile teams support people where they live, and they work with the community and society accept them. That, for example, what we find out, the absolutely best treatment is to get people with different issues to normal open market, to get them normal jobs and support them there. It's much better than create different kind of workshops with alternatives. If you manage, then it's best treatment, because you get them social status. You know, because if you are mentally ill and have somebody, how are you, or what you are doing? What I'm doing, I have mental illness. You will be not so proud. But if you say, yeah, I'm working in a supermarket, whatever, that's different. But get people normal life, get people normal jobs. That's what is a big part of what we are basically doing.
And I would like to give a floor as well as for experience in Latvia. Actually, we are on our way to find the right approach and the right options how to just to offer the rights to the more equal and independent life for the people who are right now in the institutions. Not everyone, but as well. What's the experience in Latvia so far?
Well, I think it has been, I would say, a long way. Long journey, especially for us as NGO, because we have been starting to talk about this like many years ago, and we were happy actually finally to see promises on the paper and that these promises are starting to work. We are really now seeing that we are moving somewhere, and sooner or later, actually pretty soon, we will see a lot of community-based services opening, and it's of course not enough for everybody, but it will be. It's very good start. From the critical point of view, of course, we are also looking how other countries have done it, and I think. One mistake what Latvia has been doing is choosing to keep institutions, because our belief is that everybody have the right to live in the community, even everybody who has very severe support needs, and it is pretty expensive system to go on and fund two systems at the same time, institutions what will be kept, and also all the community services which also needs proper funding. So, but that's the choice what has been done, and this is of course very difficult decisions where you need strong political will, and you need also all the municipalities on the board, and that was a difficult start for Latvia. That really municipalities were very resistant, and from that point of view, we as NGO, we are happy to see that at least we have moved forward.
Okay. Do you see any, I don't know, the opportunities that actually the experience from Denmark, the Czech Republic, or Lithuania, or Italy, or any other country in the European Union that we would like to transfer directly in Latvia? Who are the best practices?
I can mention Italian example, which I like to use a lot. That was political decision, and there was very charismatic psychiatrist Basali law in 1979, which made decision to close down all psychiatric hospitals in Italy, and basically they integrated all psychiatric care into general somatic healthcare, which I believe is also necessary here in Latvia, but I don't think it will happen in the nearest future. So that's one experience what would be necessary, because mental health care, it's not something what is separated from other healthcare issues, and in many cases you need like complex solution and complex approach. But for many reasons, there was several years ago, there was an idea to close down Vaika Street Hospital, but there was a lot of resistance from psychiatrists because these hospitals are like small kingdoms, and each hospital director is like trying to keep his own kingdom, and basically psychiatrists were resistant to integrate in the rest of healthcare.
You also mentioned that local municipalities should be on the board and actually on the same page with the process at all. I would like to ask to our guests from Denmark, what's about cooperation with local municipalities or local authorities? How deeply are they involved in the well-being of their citizens or inhabitants of the communities?
Well,
cooperation, or just, there is a headspace and just turn to them and we are happy with that?
Well, Headspace is an NGO, but cooperate very close with the municipality and the regions in Denmark. The official clinical treatment of mental illness is a part of the regional service in Denmark, and I can add to your experience in Latvia. The mental illness and the somatic illness in Denmark that are not like each other at all. The somatic illness is still the primary thing in Denmark, and Denmark still have a lot of work to do in that area too. But in Headspace, we actually have a couple of specialists from Headspace who are paid to do that, but we also have a specialist from the regional psychiatry in Denmark, and we have a social worker from the municipality.
So you are actually interconnected with the other puzzle parts of the system.
Yeah, exactly.
You are well connected.
Yeah, we have an idea that no one can help all those people alone, and we have to do it together, to lift it together, and the good old the whole is a lot bigger than the sum of the parts.
I would like to ask to Carla, what's behind that there is an option or opportunity to call into Headspace in Denmark, and actually what the issues you are dealing with on your daily life as a volunteer. You are just talking to the people, to the youngsters up to 25 years, and what are the issues that they would like to touch or just touching?
First of all, the idea with Headspace is that any problem, small or big, is welcome. So, like Anders mentioned, we don't have any predefined agenda when I meet a young guy or girl who walks over the doorstep to Headspace. But I think we have the top three issues, which is structuring and handling everyday life, and identity and self-worth, and education and work. So that is what many people come and talk about, but it's very complex. It's often a mixture of many different issues, and we also have people who is dealing with abuse, and it could both be alcohol, drugs, and we also see people with who are self-harming. But it often has to do with self-worth and identity. So and you asked also why I'm a volunteer, or
Well, it's also the choice for doing that.
Yeah, it is, and we have many.
There is some reason behind, I believe.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to study psychology this summer in Denmark at the university, and I started at Headspace as a volunteer in my gap year between high school and university. So we have young people like me, and we have students who has a personal interest, or like psychologists. We also have nurses and a lawyer. So it's something that has to do with health and mental health. And we also have people who are retired from work, who works there and has a very huge expertise, or experience behind, exactly, and they have lived a whole life, and so and then we have youngsters as myself who has a personal interest or experience. So of course we have to come and talk to the full-time staff when we want to be a volunteer, and we are going through different kind of education. We have an introduction weekend where we also learn different techniques about talking and conversation with the young people, and we learn about the issues and what to do and when we need to say that this is issues like self-harming and drug abuse, and that we need to bridge the young people to other social services that make sense. So I'm not treating the young people, I'm listening, and I'm trying to make them reflect about their issues and trying to be there for them, normalize their issues, and show them which way they can go. Local services or maybe the psychiatry.
Is there any estimations how many young people in Denmark would need the service like Headspace? Actually, they are touched with the problems you mentioned before. Many of them? Percents or thousands, or I don't know, how many customers do you have? How do you serve?
We have lots of customers. In a city like Fredericia, there are 40,000 people living there, and I guess we will see about 500 unique young people every year. So I guess there's a lot of young people who need someone to talk to. The research we did before we started Headspace in 2013 is that 80% of the young people in Denmark are fine and have no worries, no issues. 15% do from time to time have some problems where they need help from someone to get through those dilemmas, those problems, those challenges. And then 5% who needs clinical treatment. And those numbers are rising. Since 2004 in Denmark, depression, anxiety and stress has tripled. So that's one of the reasons Headspace exists in Denmark. It's a way to try to prevent some of those mental issues.
The one thing is, if we in Latvia are looking for the experience from abroad, how to find the right tools and the right approach to take care of different issues. Another way is, if you are looking for different experiences all around the world and that you would like to say, hey, that's is quite good, and we need to introduce that in Denmark or in Czech Republic. Is there anything? Yeah? Do you find the right way?
I think it is just...
It's different countries, different approaches.
I think every place special, even in one country, every region special, and I think that's really important to have very much locally based system and service. Of course, you need to keep some kind of basic policy and strategy, but then you have to be very creative and find resources which are in the country or in the local society. That I think it's more about inspirations than copy. Yeah. For example, I think one of the best service I ever helped to develop was in Albania. Yeah, in the place in the hills area where there were nearly non-professional resources. What we used the primary healthcare nurses in every village. They had the primary healthcare nurse. There were villages like very hilly area. And these ladies were living in the village like a part of the village. They didn't have any formal mental health training. That it means they didn't have any prejudice, because sometimes professional training is very much about prejudice. Yeah, because you are told that there is really something mental illness. A question if it is, because we can't find really causes of mental illness. Yeah, we treat the symptoms. We believe that we treat by pills, but if you look on the research, only 50% of people react on medication. A lot of people find another way, but because of the lobby of pharmacy, that all of us psychiatrists believe that we treat people by, but they didn't have a problem with their beliefs. We find the local families, they have some kind of natural skills to listen and to support those who could be in crisis. That we put them, if they were in crisis, normally they will go somewhere horrible hospital. We put them to that family, and family will just quite normalizing them. We pay a little bit for the family to have these people. That in 2 years we stop all admissions to the hospital, and most of those crazy people are quickly included to the society. Yeah, that I mean that was not sophisticated things, but this was probably one of the best service I ever could see. Yeah, that this is just how you can really assist people on their normal journey. Yeah, and it's on how the society can like not only accept, but to see the strengths of the people. Yeah, and I'm talking also about people with intellectual disability, because just those people sometimes have a special atmosphere around themselves. You know, they are not playing the games, for example. Yeah? But I think this is, you talk about Italy, I think this is not so only about like to move beds to general hospitals. I said in Trieste just now they have no beds. They can manage without acute beds in general hospital because they are working with community. Yeah, it's based on community teams, social workers or mainly nurses, which they support people where they live, and they work with the society and just to help everyone to understand. And it's the same model we have. I think we more work with social workers because then social work has more open-minded mindset than the nurses. I'm not saying the medical staff is not needed, but if these teams are too much based on medical model, then they are losing capacity to work recovery on a story of people, on the listening. They come and they want to solve the problem. That's not the way. Because I think this is really about assisting people to find their way. It's something like when you cut the grass, you know, in June, and then you have a second grass in autumn, which is not so big, but it's also nice smelling. And this is what happened, that's what you have to help those to find or to grow the new grass, maybe different shape, different type, but this is the life with maybe some special condition, and that's what we have to do.
Have you ever met with the different myths about independent living? And actually there are a lot of them behind, I suppose, in the mind of many people. Have you met them in Denmark, in Czech Republic, Latvia? We know the situation, and have you fought with that?
You mean what the
myths about independent living?
Myth?
Yeah.
That it's not possible, or
stereotypes that okay, independent living means that, and so on. So
well, independent living, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but
that it means that everyone. Any conditions could be supported in normal conditions, but depend on the type of support the people need. Yeah, and maybe definitely the support has to be individually tailored. It has to be very flexible. And that's what our staff is doing. Yeah, that I have, or we have, let's say, 20 staff. Also, ex-users are working. Somebody needs to be contacted 3 times a day. Somebody maybe once a week. It depends, you know, that the team is meeting every morning, discussing. We take care about 200, 250 most, let's say, needed clients in the area, in the park, and we just now stop admission nearly on 0 also. Yeah? But with this type of work, assisting flexibly, it's not a myth that it's not possible that everyone lives independently. Even those with very severe conditions of the people with intellectual disability, maybe they need 24 hours support, maybe, but still they can live much quality life in the society than in this like personal institution. Even these institutions are nicely done, and you know, everybody has a single room. This is still institution. We know if you put more than 6 people in one place, it became institution. The rules are more important than individual story.
What's about you in Denmark? Probably you have gone a very long way within that, so probably you don't have so much problems within, I don't know, the mind of the society or the communities all around Denmark, but probably there is some.
Yeah, there is some, but I wouldn't say it's one of it isn't one of the biggest problems in Denmark.
What is the biggest?
Probably.
We would say the funding, probably.
Yeah, and also in Denmark. Also, last election there was a new party, the regional selection, a new party called the Psychiatry List, because they seem to think they are so underfounded in the psychiatry in Denmark, so they need to be a part of the political game too. So yeah, the funding is one of the main issues. We have, of course, met people who think that people with mental illness can be alone, are dangerous, and stuff like that. But it's not something we hear every day, not even every week or every month. But of course, it exists in Denmark too. But I guess it's a lot less than a lot of other places, and that's because of the normalization and the independent living for everyone, almost.
Have you ever had calculations regarding the invested money and just the money returned back? Because probably we might think, oh, we're going to spend millions of euros, for example, tens of millions of euros for the very special people actually, but we don't pay so much care about it, just regular people here, and why to spend the money on that? And have you any calculations? Do you put the Danish kroner and you get back something?
We had made a pretty big evaluation on Headspace as a concept, where they use the social return of investment as the measurement, and that was an external consulting firm who made the report, and they concluded that for every euro you invest in Headspace, you get 7 euros back. So that's a pretty good number, I would say. But it's, of course, some very complex calculations, and hard to say exactly what it is.
And in Trieste, they did the calculation how compared to when they have this big institution. That of course it takes some time to develop this really committed service, but the cost of the service just now is half of the cost when it was based on the institutions. That's for sure. And on the other hand, maybe it's a little bit too hard, but what was the most cheapest system how to treat people with mental health illness? Nazi. They killed people, and they calculated this cost 40 marks. That's what I want to say. That has certain limits to discuss money. Because it's more about values. And if somebody say, well, why you invest to this people and not to us, I think that it has to be very clear line, stop it.
I would like to ask to you the same actually regarding the stereotypes in Latvia. The independent living and equal life. It sounds very good when the politicians speak about it, and actually there is some European funding behind that, and we'll grab some 100 million euros, and that's fine. But what we are going to say about Latvian people who are not so happy with everything that's going on within the projects and the different reforms that you would like to take, as well as the, local municipalities. Actually, it's the same. They would like to ask for money. Okay, if you need that, infrastructure, building a new one. What will happen to the service later on when the project will be over? It's the regular questions, and actually, what are the stereotypes regarding the independent living and equal life?
Well, stereotype number one is that these people with severe disabilities, that they cannot and shouldn't live in society, and this has been very difficult to convince that everybody has the right, and we still are not there, because still there is belief that people with most severe disabilities should be in institutions. Then also there is stereotype and expectation actually that people don't understand what does it mean independent life. People put very high criteria and expectations, so we expect that this person with disabilities will be able to do everything on his own, but it's not the idea. The idea is that the person should receive the necessary support, and support should be very individualized, tailored to the individual needs. So also us, we also receive our daily life various support from our friends, families, and we are not completely on our own. We are not isolated islands in the world. It's very normal daily life to have support. So why we have these high expectations from people with intellectual or psychosocial disabilities?
I think because these services are already consuming the money, yeah? That you have to calculate how much money goes to the existing system, and if you start to also calculate that probably if you keep the system you have to invest to refurbish, and then probably if you don't have enough staff, through some time there will be push that you need to have more staff. That just to say that we keep institutions, it will be cheaper. It's naive. It will be not cheaper. It will be more expensive, and that we, for example, calculated the cost of these psychiatric hospitals, which you have to keep them ongoing, and it was something like 200 million euro, which is for the system quite a money in which you can buy for everyone a flat. That means that this is really silly to say, well, we have the system just now and we keep the system as it is, because we never keep a system as it is. You have to invest anyhow, and you have to decide once where you will invest. I think it's very much what you already said. The society could be a problem, but very often the problems are those who could be also part of the solution. It means the staff of the institutions, the directors of the institutions. I think they are mostly the biggest problem. Because they are used to work there, they have a different kind of benefits, and they are afraid to losing the job, which they will not lose the job because there will be new jobs in the society, but it's quite different way of working, because you are not like boss who decide what will happen. If your work is based on coming to the flat of the clients, you have to knock on the doors. You have to start to treat a client like a partner, and it's not what is going on in institution. That even some of the staff will be never capable to do such job. Yeah, and that's the main issue. I think those who block at least in my country, those who block the changes are the staff, the professionals.
You're welcome to join.
Yeah, just another comment about the cost. I saw a report from World Economic Forum, and every single country in the world, not only Denmark, Czech Republic and Latvia, every single country in the world have rising number of mental illness, and of course rising costs. They had an interview with the director of the Mental Illness Institute from the United States of America, Thomas Ensel, who predicted that in 20 years the cost involving mental illness will be more than diabetes, cancer and respiratory disease all put together. So it's a pretty serious problem, and and I guess that the main point is that we have to do something before. We have to intervene early. We have to prevent some of those mental illnesses, and we have to make some ways to treat people earlier in the process.
But would you say that mental health is quite in a top positions within, I don't know, the list of priorities in Denmark for politicians, for local communities, I don't know, at every level? Is it a quite high issue?
For some.
For some
politicians. It's beginning to become more and more important and are coming closer to the top of the list in a lot of political parties.
Okay, Jan, what's about the Czech Republic? Yes, you can fight by alone.
Well, what the support of the politicians, you mean, or?
Yeah, is it a quite high issue within society, within the policymakers' minds and everything?
Just now it is, and I think it's. You have to work. You never know what happened. That you have to be ready. You have to work. I think that without 20 years of work of a lot of NGOs, they create alternatives, the involvement of the users and families, that's very important, that they are like they have a good self-esteem and they can go and fight for their interests. Then sometimes God helps you and something changed in mind. Our Prime Minister had some kind of issue in the family that he's just not very supportive. You know that you never know what happened, that you have to do it. But talking about our situation, we have enormously good situation because just the Minister of Health employs 300 people working on the reform, which is even more than they have usual staff, you know, that everybody is busy just on the health reform. I don't know how long it will take, but with enormously good situation just now.
Everyone who is listening us, you're kindly welcome to ask your questions, just add your replies or just comments during a conversation that we are going on. And is there anyone who would like to speak up? Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks a lot for all the insight. I'm not a psychiatric practitioner myself. My dad is a psychiatrist in France, and I thought I would reflect on what you two said about like the transition from mental institution to like departments in normal hospital. And what he tells me, it's exactly the same thing that you do. He talks a lot about kingdoms and also about the staff being the main problem. What he says is basically you have two branches of psychiatry almost. People that spend their whole career in the institution, in the countryside, and the ones actually doing it in the general hospital. And he's been general hospitals all his career, and he says, yeah, but yeah, the staff is like you basically have 1-2 generations of practitioners that need to go away from the system to be replaced by new mindsets. And then the municipalities also want to keep these works because it's a lot of employees that live in the city. So, do you have any? Yeah, what are you? Suggestions to either to get rid of or to retrain these practitioners that are used to their old ways of locking people in. How do you do this transition in practice with the staff that doesn't want to do it?
Well, firstly, we are very much keen on getting young practitioners, young doctors, young psych, as soon as possible. To open them, let's say, possibility to see the work can be done differently. Yeah, that, for example, until now, if you are specialized, you have to be within the hospital. After 5 years, then you can go outside of the hospital. That we changed. That you could start your specialization even in community services. Of course, you have to go to learn how the hospital works, but that's first to change your way of postgraduate education and to get young doctors possibility to have impact from community services first and not from the hospital first. Then it is about whom you are working and listening, because always you have the same number of those who are probably you have the same number of those who are really motivated. But I think in every hospital we try to find those who are motivated, not necessarily those who are on the top. You know, sometimes management, even sometimes management is motivated to do something like Azaria, to do something different. But that's what we try to have. That I'm talking maybe about 1,000 people working in the hospital, that we try to understand which part of the hospital is like open to do it differently, and we support them. Yeah, and also I think if these people start to work together, for example, with the social workers, community teams, and they together just start to think about the case, they dramatically change their mindset. It means to get people outside of this rigid institutional thinking, to get them to work in real work. In France, it's interesting that there is I think Lille, there is a very nice, good service, very community-based, but it's only half of the city. Yeah, and another half of the city is very conservative regime, and it exists 20 years. It's magic. Even that you can, or I was trying to do something in Ljubljana, and Ljubljana is just something like 30-40 minutes from Trieste, which is really excellent example. Even so, still very rigid system. That it's a magic. Sometimes people are very resistant, but I think you have to knock on open doors to find who is open and to make him or her like part of your game. Yeah, that's what we do.
Is there anyone who would like to join our conversation from the audience? If it's not, I would like to ask.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
And also, what works if you have a power, as I have a power, time to time to fire some bad director of hospital, then the others follow. That's also, you know, I'm responsible for the directors of the hospitals, and one was really problematic, we fire him, and others start to listen. But sometimes use the power is also good.
Thank you. It's quite right too to do this. So, you talked about so many about youngsters and young people in Denmark, but actually, I would like to know: are you prepared for actually everything else that could be faced regarding the aging of the people? Actually, life expectancy within Europe and European Union is just going on and going on, and it means that if we would live longer, of course, we would be touched with the different diseases and the older age, isn't it? How are you prepared for the elderly people? It's a bit out of the headspace, but anyway, I would like to know. You know, Alzheimer's and everything else, and so on, so on, so on.
Yeah, and we do have retirement homes specialized in Alzheimer's and other kinds of dementia. I'm actually not sure how well prepared we are. When we look at the increasing numbers of people with mental illness, what I do believe is that mental illness, and maybe Dr. Pfeiffer could correct me if I'm wrong, but most time mental illness shows itself first time in before you turn 30, at least, most of the times. And then there's dementia and Alzheimer's, who of course comes a lot later. And I must admit that I don't know too much about that area. Maybe you could.
Okay, Mr. Pfeiffer, maybe you can. Yes, you can join. Speak on the topic.
Well, I think it's the model is similar for all conditions. You know that including the geriatric situation, including Alzheimer. I think you need to have regional based, different kind of flexible support, which individually serve the needs of those who are of the needs. That firstly, you have to support the family, and the family take care about elderly. You have to find a way. Maybe it's much more better to give them subsidies. If they want to stay home and take care, you know, but maybe they need some kind of external support by helpers, by psychologists. Yeah, then maybe you need some respite care. Yeah, that the families start maybe for 1 or 2 weeks. The dad or mom in the aging process will go to some kind of good place, and they can take a little bit of rest or go on a holiday. Or maybe the couple is living together, one of them died, and then the man or woman is in the crisis. Then you assist at home, maybe she can attend different kind of support, you know. It has to be really flexible. Maybe sometimes you need to be more intensive, then you can stand back. And if you don't have this, let's say, different kind of flexible arrangement, then of course your system will be very, very expensive, because you move people to the institutions, and institutions are always very expensive. But it's about flexibility, yeah, and different kind of arrangements according to the needs of people. Yeah.
I would think that one of the key to the success is just an easy access to the service. That you are very famous in Denmark with that. Because actually, just a couple of hours ago here from the stage, someone said that actually it's in Latvia, it's difficult to find a way if you get in touch with some specific diseases, or you're just relatives in touch with that. And it's on your own just to find the right way. how you manage that information is available for everyone in Denmark where to turn if something happens? Is there anything specific that you have done? Or it's just, I don't know, the way of living in Denmark?
Well, first of all, we know that it's hard to seek the help if you aren't feeling well, if you are feeling some problem with your mental health. It can be embarrassing, it's difficult to go out and say to someone, I need help. It's a lot of pressure. So we have to make it, accessible.
Are the people going and calling for help? In Latvia, actually, we are just much more tend to be quite closed at first. Shocked, close the doors and the windows and live by our own, not to ask for help.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a natural reaction.
Exactly, it's hard to ask for help. So that's why if you have convinced yourself to go and ask for the help, you have to make it very accessible. You have to make the door open. You have to make sure people know where to go. And I actually believe that Headspace has a big part in this because we cannot help everyone, but we can, as professionals and as volunteers, have we know where they can get the right treatment. We can follow the people to the right treatment.
I think it's important that you go to the people and not people go to you, and that you find a way which is not stigmatizing, because that's very often the first case. I don't know if it's relevant, but I was involved in this Kosovo crisis in Albania that time. As I said, I was just supporting the WHO program, and we had a lot of families from Kosovo coming, and it was clear that these, especially women, they have a terrible experiences of being raped or whatever. But they will never come to some kind of official place, because once they will be then labeled, then their husband will just never touch her again. That we arranged a tent for like playground. They came with kids, and there was some coffee, and there were some other women, like Muslim women. I think they start to share horrible experiences. Or I had the experience that we had the bus going around the country, which was like everybody can come in and start with something similar as you have, but it was mobile. We were surprised how many people came. They said, I will never go to the psychologist or psychiatrist, but I think we have to be creative and find a way how to make the access to the people easy. And that's also what our mobile teams are doing. They are coming to the people and not waiting. The people are coming to our center. That's probably the answer.
Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would like to add that if we are talking about the early prevention, it's hard to go to people and how do you find those people who need early prevention? So that's why you have to keep the open door too. But otherwise, I agree.
And you have to do it the way which is really not like stigmatizing. Hello, who's crazy? Please come to me. I'm psychiatrist. You. Yeah.
Of course, the last in the row, right? Actually.
It helps, yeah.
Right. Yeah, what would you like to join just to add regarding the accessibility to the service?
About accessibility, I would say what Zelda usually gets, because there are like two main things that we provide as service is free legal aid to everybody who comes through our door. I mean, person with mental disability or person who is relative. And other thing is what we provide as services right now, supported decision-making service. And many times we try to refer a person to young generation psychiatrist, and we get a lot of times the request, please help me to find a better psychiatrist, and we actually, many times we are successful in this, but also sometimes we see that those psychiatrists, what we really suggest, they are getting overloaded also, and sometimes we actually try to save their time and not to we are running out of the list, and I was happy when I talked to Mars Taub, and he gave me another list of young generation psychiatrists that we could use also, and that's not only
What's
anymore.
about the volunteering, like David in Denmark? Is it popular in Latvia? That we use volunteers or just specialists who work pro bono? It's that they would like to help others?
Well, I think it's a little bit different situation in Latvia with volunteering, and especially if you talk about this kind of work, because also sometimes there is expectation, and people sometimes don't understand why NGOs need some funding. And I always say, for instance, our NGO, we are always very good education. We are very hard-working people, and we work much more than 8 hours per day. And of course, people need also to earn money to feed your family. So, of course, you can do also volunteering, and I believe everybody from Zalda do a lot actually outside of working hours, but it's a bit different than I would say wealthy Western countries who can afford volunteering much more.
But you're going to stop working more than 8 hours a day, you know? So it leads you to the bad consequences.
I know my colleagues are, sometimes reminding me.
We know.
Yeah.
What happens when I'm turning 26? I get in touch with your service at the Headspace around 25. And then I'm turned back and I'm turned 26. What happens to me next? I would like to know how good the system works.
When you turn 26, then you are still more than welcome. And you're welcome.
No, you just mentioned from 12 to 25.
Yeah, and when you try to ask for some funding, then you have to write some numbers on a piece of paper. When the 10-year-old come to me and say, I have this weird feeling. Sometimes I feel like I have a hole in my stomach. I just feel the urge to cry. Then I don't say, come back in a couple of years. That wouldn't be right. We are open to every young people with some kind of challenge, problem, dilemma who relates to the youth. So if you are 27, you're 10, you're welcome.
Yeah, Carla?
Just to add a comment, because like you said, every young people are welcome, but we also have seen whole families come together into Headspace, also because they have concerns for someone relative, or if the young people are followed by a sister, a brother, a mother, and of course we are with wide arms, and we welcome them all and talk to them, and we can show them other local services and offers that are right for them. Also the parents, for example.
You're serving as a guide for the next steps, what should be done next, isn't it?
Yeah.
It works well, because sometimes in Latvia someone says that, okay, one specialist doesn't know anything about the other one, his colleague, doing next door. And that's a problem. I have heard about it. So luckily you have solved it.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and also that it's very local. The thing about that, it's local services and offers. So I'm from Fredericia. I know what is going on in the city, and I can share my knowledge about that. And I think that's very valuable.
Thank you. Yep.
And you can say we don't know. We're not experts in every single kind of mental illness, but we know where the experts are. We know a lot about young people, and we know a lot about where you can get the professional help too. So we're not expert in anything.
You are like a mediators within between a
for some young people, yeah.
Okay.
But that's I think we have something similar. Not necessarily mediator, because just I think this is something like a step system, or you need to have some gatekeeping, because very often what happens if you don't have such system, somebody has a problem, is not helped for a long time, and then they goes directly to specialists, and especially in kids, what's happened, they are medicated, and a lot of social problems are like medicalized. You know, that I think the support of normal way of solving problems, like involving family, as I said, you know, or like start to work with the other kids, or maybe with the teachers. I think it's much better than maybe in our post-communist country we have all nothing or very specialized service and nothing in between. And then it means that a lot of answers are wrong, yeah? A lot of answers are maybe too medical. And then people became more dependent on the system than to be learned how to use their strengths and skills and go on with their stories. I think that's quite big difference between what they do and what we do.
What about education? Actually, we have had stories about the children who would like to start in kindergarten, and that causes problems for the parents as well as for the others in the kindergarten. The same continues to the school, because actually also the teachers are not always happy with the with the people who would like to get an equal life and equal opportunities like everyone else. How it's solved in Denmark and other countries all around Europe, do you know? Is it easy to have that kind of child in the kindergarten, school?
No, it's not easy.
Oh, thanks God, we are not alone.
Yeah, in Denmark, a couple of years ago, they made a reform in the school to get to make sure that less children were in some kind of specialized part of the school.
So-called inclusive education system.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem that then people are pretty mad about it in Denmark is that they did it to save money. The resources didn't follow the kids, and that's what I believe our new government is. They said it before the election, at least, that they will try to make sure there's more resources in the schools to help the children with special needs, so they can experience some kind of real inclusion. That's a plan, at least.
Is there anyone who would like to join a conversation from the audience? You are kindly welcome to join us, just to ask something. What's about in Czech Republic regarding the same education system and education system? You have a child with some disease, and if you're a father and mother and you would like to send your child with some diagnosis to the kindergarten and just follow to the school,
I think we were really very
how does the system work?
Yeah. I think the things are just now very changing, but we were even sued in the Strasbourg court of the stigmatization of Roma kids, because they've been like labeled like intellectually not capable, but because we were used our Gajo test, you know, that the Roma societies have different way how to use their intellect. That everyone from the 80% of the young Roma kids were like labeled, they don't have enough intellectual capacity, which is totally wrong. I think it's proving. I think that kids with let's say Czech families with different kind of disabilities have much more chance to get in inclusive education. That just know it's a huge program. That if you have a handicapped child, you can get the subsidies to have an assistant. Then you that the kids goes to normal school and have individual assistant. I'm not saying it's everywhere, but it's just the program. But if you are Roma kids, I think you have much more problems. That I think this is still some kind of racist policy which goes on in our country. That really, if you are disabled, you are Roma, you have low chance to get proper education. Then you are like not Roma disabled child, unfortunately.
I would also like to know what happens in the primary medical care. Actually, is it easy for the doctors to recognize some mental problems, diseases, or just the causes for that? Because sometimes what the doctors would say, okay, you just work too much, you get a bit more stressy than everyone else, just take a rest, just take a couple of holidays and everything will be okay. But actually the problems are much more deeper than it seems like in a first sight.
I think the most effective system is that you don't do from GPs or small psychiatrists, but you effectively link general practitioners with a specialized system. That, for example, what our teams do, we come regularly to the GP office and we offer the consultation. And sometimes the GPs, together with the primary nurse, can do with some kind of our support and assistance much better job, because they know family, their family doctors, they know much better whole family than we do. That basically, it's about education, our primary about the general practitioners. I think in UK when I work to be general practitioners, you need to spend 6 months in training the mental health system. You know, in our country it's only 1 month, but I think that's also how this month is used, and it's not really too much to make them specialized, but to have some kind of sense when you have to ask for consultation or not. And that, I think it's much better than treat them a diagnosis, and that seems the best to use consultation of specialized service and specialized services coming to the GP and helping them to keep as much cases in their caseload better than go to the specialist, because then specialists can really have energy and time for those who need more support, and then you can treat them in the community and you don't need to send them to the institution.
What about you?
It's actually a pretty big problem in Denmark. The psychiatrists are getting a lot of patients from the local practitioners, doctors who aren't having any mental illness. So they have to talk to a lot of people and say, yeah, I can see you're sad, but I cannot help you. You have to go back to your own doctor. So it's actually kind of huge in Denmark, and I'm sure they don't have any solution right now, at least.
If I understand that, the GPs are sending too many people to Schengen. That's exactly what I'm saying. That it has to be the other way around.
You have to go to the doctors and
the specialist has to support the GPs and not the GPs sending more.
Okay. If there are no any other questions arise from the audience, I would like to say that we are just quite close to the final round. And of course, for our guests from abroad, as well as Ieva from Latvia, it's just your turn just to say the final comment regarding the possibilities to reach the equal life for everyone, equal possibilities even for those people who has been within institutions so long, too long time. Carla, you've been silent for a while.
Yeah, can you the question again?
It's not a question actually. What would you say?
Okay.
What's the best way, or just
like many other things, I think it's education and it's informing and it's spreading out the words about we are here. We have different kind of services and we have different kind of offers to come like to Headspace in Denmark and talk with us and reaching out.
That's what we are doing.
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
And I think that's the most important thing to do.
Okay. Adesh.
Yeah, to make it very accessible, it has to be easy to get the help you need. That's one line. That's accessibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
It should be easy accessible. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think because we have this Convention of the Rights of People with Disability, I think it's everyone, especially politicians' obligation because in fact it is illegal to keep anyone with some disability in any kind of isolation. That's the first, but it has to be very clear, yeah? That if somebody support or don't fight against institutions and the person is in a responsible position from the European or international law perspective, he is doing or she's doing illegal things. That has to be very clear, yeah? And a second is about don't do others what you don't want they do yourself. You know, do you want to stay do you want to stay in a psychiatric hospital for 5 years? No. Yeah. And just try to do what you want the other do to you. It's quite simple, but it takes maybe 1-2 generations.
And you're welcome. You're about to finish.
I would say that we need to go on with what we have started, of course, because it doesn't end with one ending of structural period. We have to go on also after 2022 and 2023. Zelda supports right now 312 people, and from all these 312 people, 34 have left institutions. And I would say I am happy to see for each person some steps and some successes what they are making in their daily lives, and this is for us very rewarding to see this, and really it proves that people are able to live in community, only they need just some support from all of us who are around. And what is also very important is, and this is a good start, of course, this joint tent, but I would would like to see this cooperation, which is really very necessary from healthcare sector and welfare sector, because Ministry of Welfare cannot do on its own alone this deinstitutionalization process. It's very necessary that Health Ministry is on the board, so it's really very good to see that there are good start and movement starting.
Mīļie viesi, tad apmeklētāji, gribu teikt lielu paldies ar aplausiem mūsu šīs dienas viesiem un dalībniekiem. So thank you to our panelists and guests from Denmark as well as the Czech Republic. Thank you. And you're from Latvia. And of course you're going to try, because probably the best beer in the world is in Latvia. So take your time to stretch your legs, grab a glass, and that's for everyone else. So thank you. Un dāmas un kungi, liels paldies jums vēlreiz. Es vēlos atgādināt, ka mūsu